My sister inherited millions. Parents said I'd build my own fortune alone. I did, and more. The mahogany conference room smelled of expensive leather and old money. 24-year-old Michael Harrison sat rigid in his chair, his calloused hands a stark contrast to the polished table where his family's future was being decided. Across from him, his sister Victoria smoothed her designer dress, her perfectly manicured nails catching the afternoon light streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the law firm overlooking Manhattan's Upper East Side. Their parents had been gone for 3 months now, a tragic car accident on their way back from their country club in the Hamptons. The grief was still raw, but today wasn't about mourning. Today was about the reading of the Harrison family will, and Michael had prepared himself for what he suspected was coming. Attorney Richard Pemberton, a man who had served the Harrison family for over 30 years, cleared his throat and began reading the meticulously crafted document. The words echoed through the room like a judge's gavel. The family estate worth $47 million. The textile company that had been in the family for 3 generations. The mansion in Connecticut. The summer home in Martha's Vineyard. The investment portfolio, all of it going to Victoria. Ann Harrison. Michael received exactly what he had expected. Nothing. Well, not quite nothing. There was a letter, handwritten by his father in the distinctive penmanship that Michael remembered. From birthday cards and report card signatures. The attorney handed it over with an apologetic smile, as if a piece of paper could somehow balance the scales of a $47 million inheritance. Michael's hands trembled slightly as he unfolded the cream-colored stationery. His father's words were clear and cutting. Michael, your sister has always shown the responsibility and grace needed to carry on our family legacy. You, however, have chosen a different path, one of rebellion and independence. We believe that a man must forge his own destiny. We have confidence that you will build your own fortune, just as your great-grandfather did when he started with nothing but determination and a dream. The irony wasn't lost on him. His great-grandfather had indeed started with nothing, but he had built the very fortune that was now being handed to Victoria on a silver platter. Michael folded the letter carefully and slipped it into his jacket pocket. Victoria's eyes held a mixture of guilt and relief, but she said nothing. The family. Lawyer continued with minor details, but Michael had stopped listening. He had always been the different one. While Victoria had dutifully attended cotillion classes and charity galas, Michael had spent his teenage years working summers at construction sites and auto repair shops. While she studied art history at Vassar, he had dropped out of his Ivy League college after 2 years, much to his parents' horror, to pursue what they called blue-collar adventures. The truth was more complex. Michael had never felt at home in the world of country clubs and networking events. He found genuine satisfaction in working with his hands, in solving problems, in building something tangible. His parents had seen this as a phase, a rebellion that would eventually pass. They had been wrong. After the reading, Victoria finally spoke to him on the courthouse steps. Her voice was soft, almost apologetic. Michael, you know I never asked for this. If you need anything, he cut her off gently but firmly. I don't need anything from you, Vic. This is exactly what they wanted, for me to make it on my own. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. That evening, Michael sat in his modest apartment in Queens, a far cry from the family estate where he had grown up. The walls were bare, except for a few photographs and his framed electrician's license, something he had earned during one of his rebellious phases that had so disappointed his parents. He pulled out his laptop and began researching. For the past 2 years, he had been working for a small electrical contracting company in Brooklyn. His boss, Frank Rossetti, had been talking about retirement, and Michael had been learning every aspect of the business. He had saved $38,000 money earned through 12-hour days, weekend work, and a lifestyle that would have horrified his parents. But $38,000 wouldn't buy much in the competitive world of electrical contracting in New York City. Michael needed equipment, insurance, bonding, a work truck, and capital to carry him through the first few months when cash flow would be unpredictable. He needed at least $150,000 to start properly. That night, he made a decision. That would change everything. He wouldn't just start a small electrical company. He would build something bigger, something that would make his parents' $40-7 million inheritance look like pocket change. Michael spent the next 3 weeks researching and planning. He studied the construction industry in New York, identifying gaps in the market. He noticed that most electrical contractors specialized in either residential or commercial work, but very few offered comprehensive electrical solutions for the booming green energy sector that was beginning to take hold in the city. Solar installations, energy-efficient building retrofits, electric vehicle charging stations. The market was exploding, but most established companies were slow to adapt. This was his opportunity. The challenge was funding. Banks weren't eager to lend to a 24-year-old with no college degree and no collateral. But Michael had learned something during his years working construction: the value of relationships and reputation. He approached Frank Rossetti with a proposal. Frank could sell him the business for a fraction of its value in exchange for a percentage of future profits. Michael would rebrand and expand into green energy solutions, using Frank's established client base and reputation as a foundation. Frank, who had been struggling to find a buyer who would maintain his employees and honor his commitments to long-term customers, agreed. For $25,000 and 15% of future profits, Michael became the owner of Rossetti Electrical. The first year was brutal. Michael worked 18-hour days, often starting before dawn and finishing well after midnight. He personally handled estimates, supervised installations, managed payroll, and even swept the office. His hands, already calloused from years of electrical work, became permanently stained with wire nuts and electrical tape. But slowly, strategically, he began to transform the company. He invested in training his crew on solar installations and energy-efficient systems. He networked with green energy consultants and sustainable building contractors. He underbid major projects, often working at a loss just to build a reputation in the new market. The breakthrough came 8 months after he took over the company. A major real estate developer was planning to retrofit 24 buildings in Manhattan with energy-efficient electrical systems and rooftop solar installations. The project was worth $2.8 million. Michael's bid was aggressive, so aggressive that he would barely break even, but it would establish his company as Kiko's aggressives, his company as Pampas Competences Services, his Kamuzigas Kalkan, but it would establish his company as Pofis, his company as a serious player in the green energy market. He got the contract. The project took 6 months to complete and nearly killed him. Michael lost 15 pounds, developed chronic insomnia, and strained every business relationship he had built. But when the last solar panel was installed and the final inspection was passed, Harrison Green Energy Solutions, he had renamed the company. Dropping the Rossetti name with Frank's blessing, had established itself as the premier green electrical contractor in New York City. The real estate developer was so impressed with the quality and efficiency of Michael's work that he recommended Harrison Green Energy to 3 other major developers. Word spread quickly in the tight-knit world of New York construction and real estate. By the end of his 2nd year in business, Michael had 43 employees and had completed over $12 million in contracted work. His personal income had jumped from the $58,000 he had made as an employee to over $400,000 as a business owner. But Michael wasn't satisfied. He could see the bigger picture, the massive shift toward renewable energy that was coming. Electric vehicles, battery storage systems, smart building technology. The entire electrical infrastructure of America was going to be rebuilt over the next 20 years, and Michael intended to be at the center of that transformation. He began expanding beyond New York, opening offices in Philadelphia and Boston. He acquired smaller electrical contractors who specialized in different aspects of green technology. He hired engineers and project managers with advanced degrees, building the kind of sophisticated operation that could handle massive infrastructure projects. Victoria, meanwhile, had been living the life their parents had always envisioned for her. She had married Thomas Whitman III, heir to a shipping fortune, and spent her days managing charitable foundations and attending social events. The family textile company, now under her ownership, continued to operate much as it had for decades, generating steady profits, but showing little growth or innovation. Michael had seen Victoria only twice since the reading of the will, once at their parents' memorial service and once at a charity gala where his company had donated electrical work for the venue renovation. Both encounters had been polite, but distant. Victoria seemed genuinely happy for his success, but there was an underlying tension, as if she was waiting for him to ask for something or to express bitterness about the inheritance he never did. 3 years after his parents' death, Michael Harrison stood in the penthouse office of his company's new headquarters in downtown Manhattan. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, he could see the city skyline dotted with construction cranes, many of them working on projects that his company was electrifying with cutting-edge green technology. Harrison Green Energy Solutions now employed over 800 people across 6 states. The company had grown from a small electrical contractor to a comprehensive renewable energy corporation, handling everything from residential solar installations to massive commercial wind farms. Michael's personal net worth had crossed the $100 million mark 6 months earlier, officially making him wealthier than the inheritance Victoria had received. But the numbers weren't what drove him anymore. He had discovered something during his years of building the company. He genuinely loved the work. He loved the challenge of solving complex energy problems, the satisfaction of creating jobs for skilled workers, and the knowledge that his company was helping to build a more sustainable future. That morning, Michael was reviewing proposals for his company's largest project yet, a comprehensive energy retrofit of a university campus that would include solar installations, battery storage, electric vehicle charging infrastructure, and a complete overhaul of the electrical systems in 47 buildings. The project was worth $89 million and would establish Harrison Green Energy as one of the top renewable energy contractors on the East Coast. His assistant knocked and entered with an expression that Michael had learned to recognize as trouble. She handed him a legal document that made his stomach drop. Victoria was suing him. The lawsuit alleged that Michael had used insider information about the family's business connections to build his company, giving him an unfair advantage in securing contracts. It claimed that several of Harrison Green Energy's major clients had been introduced to the company through relationships that Michael had developed through his family's social connections, and that this constituted a form of inheritance fraud. Michael stared at the document in disbelief. The allegations were not only false, but also deeply personal. The lawsuit wasn't just about money, it was an attack on everything he had built. Every long day and sleepless night, he had invested in creating something of his own. More troubling was the timing. Victoria had filed the lawsuit just 3 days before the university contract was set to be finalized. If the allegations became public, it could not only cost him that contract, but also damage his company's reputation permanently. Michael immediately called his attorney, but as he was explaining the situation, another piece of disturbing news arrived. His lawyer had received a call from a private investigator who claimed to have information about the Harrison family that would be relevant to the lawsuit. The investigator wanted to meet immediately. That afternoon, Michael sat in a coffee shop in Midtown Manhattan across from a woman named Sarah Chun, a former FBI agent turned private investigator. She had been hired, she explained, by someone she couldn't name to investigate the Harrison family's business dealings over the past 20 years. What she had discovered was stunning. The Harrison family textile company, which had been the foundation of their $47 million fortune, had been engaging in systematic tax fraud for over a decade. The company had been using a complex network of offshore accounts and shell companies to hide profits and avoid paying federal taxes. The total amount of unpaid taxes, including penalties and interest, was estimated over $15 million. More damaging was evidence that Michael's father had been using family charitable foundations to funnel money to political candidates in exchange for favorable regulatory treatment for the textile company. Several of these transactions appeared to violate federal campaign finance laws. Sarah Chun handed Michael a thick folder of documents. "Your sister may not know the full extent of what's in here," she said, "but her financial advisors certainly do. The IRS investigation is already underway. They've been building this case for 18 months. Michael felt the room spinning around him. His parents, who had always presented themselves as pillars of their community, had been running what amounted to a criminal enterprise. The fortune that Victoria had inherited was built on fraud and tax evasion. "Why are you telling me this?" Michael asked. Sarah Chun smiled slightly. "Because the person who hired me thought you deserved to know the truth about what you didn't inherit." The revelation changed everything. Michael realized that Victoria's lawsuit wasn't just about jealousy or spite. It was a desperate attempt to deflect attention from the family's legal problems by attacking him. If she could prove that his success was somehow illegitimate, it might provide cover for the much more serious crimes that were about to be exposed. But Michael found himself facing an unexpected dilemma. Despite everything that had happened between them, Victoria was still his sister. The investigation would destroy her financially and possibly send her to prison for crimes that their father had committed. She had 2 young children and a husband whose own family business was already struggling. That evening, Michael made a decision that surprised even himself. Instead of using the information to defend against Victoria's lawsuit, he called her directly. They met at a small restaurant in Connecticut, not far from the family estate where they had grown up. Victoria looked exhausted and frightened, and Michael realized that she knew more about their parents' illegal activities than she had let on. Michael placed a copy of the investigator's report on the table between them. Victoria's face went pale as she recognized what it was. "You can drop the lawsuit," Michael said quietly, "or this becomes public. But either way, you need to know that the IRS is coming. You have maybe 6 months before they file criminal charges." Victoria began to cry, not the delicate tears of someone seeking sympathy, but the deep, desperate sobs of someone whose world was collapsing. She admitted that she had known about some of the financial irregularities, but had trusted their parents, accountants and lawyers, to handle everything legally. When the family lawyers had suggested filing the lawsuit against Michael, she had agreed, partly out of fear and partly out of a resentment she had never fully acknowledged. "I never wanted any of this," she whispered. "I just wanted a normal life, but they kept pushing me to be the perfect daughter, the keeper of the family legacy. I was so angry when you left, not because you were rebelling, but because I envied your courage to walk away." Michael felt something shift inside him, a release of anger and resentment that he had been carrying for years. He realized that Victoria had been as trapped by their parents' expectations as he had been, just in a different way. Over the next several hours, they talked more honestly than they had since childhood. Victoria agreed to drop the lawsuit and to cooperate with federal investigators in exchange for immunity. Michael agreed to help her financially during the legal process, not out of obligation, but because it was the right thing to do. The investigation into the Harrison family businesses dominated local news for months. Victoria lost everything: the estate, the company, most of the inheritance. But she also found something she had never had: the freedom to build her own life on her own terms. Michael's company not only survived the scandal, but actually benefited from it. The contrast between his legitimate Growing business and his family's criminal enterprise highlighted his integrity and independence. The university contract was finalized, and 3 more major projects followed within 6 months. 2 years later, Michael stood in the same penthouse office, but now the view included a construction site where Harrison Green Energy was building a state-of-the-art battery manufacturing facility. His company had evolved from a contractor to a full-scale renewable energy manufacturer, and his personal net worth had reached $340 million. But more importantly, he had something that money couldn't buy: the knowledge that everything he had built was truly his own. Victoria had remarried, this time to a high school teacher named David, who coached soccer and made her laugh. She worked as a project manager for a nonprofit organization that built affordable housing, using skills she had never known she possessed. Her children attended public school and played Little League baseball. The Harrison family fortune was gone, but for the first time in their lives, both siblings were truly free. Michael kept his father's letter in his desk drawer, not as a reminder of rejection, but as proof of something he had always known: that the most valuable things in life couldn't be inherited. They had to be earned, built, and fought for. And in the end, that made them infinitely more precious than anything that could be written into a will.
Thank you for watching this story unfold with us here on M&A The Story Unfolds. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new tale. We'd love to know where you're watching from. Leave a comment below and tell us what part of the world you're joining us from. Your support means everything. See you in the next story.